Sometimes obsession starts with a simple interaction, other times with no interactions at all. Without further hesitation, let's begin. 3 years ago, I was living with my then boyfriend in a one-bedroom apartment in a little mountain town. It was a half-basement unit, so the bottom half of all our windows were level with the ground outside. It was also an older apartment, and not all the windows could fully lock. One day, my boyfriend comes home from work while I'm laying on the sofa, and immediately runs up to the window near me and looks out it frantically. He then goes to look out every other window in the house, then walks outside looking in the windows. When he comes back from this confusing exploit, I ask him what the hell is going on, and why is he being a spaz. He said, "I think I just walked up on a dude looking into the window at you. He took off as I walked up." This was naturally very unsettling, but after discussing it and considering the time of day, which was about 2 p.m., and the number of people out and about around the complex at the time, we came to the conclusion that it was probably just a curious neighbor passing by, happening to glance in. With that, we forgot about it. If only that was the end. For the next couple of months, odd stuff happened here and there. Someone would knock on the door occasionally. Then when I went to answer it, no one was there. I'd find things in my apartment that I wasn't really familiar with, or things like clothing items would vanish. I didn't really think twice about any of it, until one night. My boyfriend and I were arguing around 1 or 2 in the morning, and we were being loud. We were standing in the kitchen face to face. His back was open to the window, with the blinds halfway up, and I was facing it. Amidst our arguing, I glanced behind him at the window, thinking I saw the reflection of my face in it. The window was open. It wasn't my face. There was a man with his face pressed amongst the window screen, just watching us. Given the fact that we were arguing and it was late, I thought for a moment that it might be a concerned neighbor walking up to the window to speak with us. So I spoke to him. "Hello? Can I help you?" I asked, a little aggressively, thinking a neighbor was intruding on our privacy. He responded to this by staring, unwavering and cold, right at me. His face did not change expression. He didn't blink or move, just looked right at me, a way I have never been looked at before, or since. In this instant, I also realized that because of the window being level with the ground, the only way this man's face could be where it was if he was laying on the ground outside the apartment, or crouched and contorted to look into the window. My heart sank. I buried my face into my boyfriend's chest and closed my eyes in fear. My boyfriend, up to this point, thought I was messing with him. When I buried my face into his chest, only then did he say, "Is there really someone at the window?" I whispered yes to him. He felt my fear and took a moment before he turned around. By the time he did, the man was gone. It was at this point I started to think about all the little odd occurrences that I had been experiencing. I assumed the worst. I filed a police report with his description, and my brother loaded my apartment up with weapons to protect me, or at least inform this peeping Tom that I was armed. After that night, myself, my boyfriend, and my brother were on high alert. There was a couple times where my brother came over, that he saw a sketchy dude hanging around, and even one time, he saw him at my window. He tried to follow him discreetly, but that guy took off running as soon as my brother stepped in his direction. The last night I had an experience with this man, I was sitting home alone on my sofa. My boyfriend was at work at a restaurant about 2 blocks away. He had picked me up from work an hour earlier. We sat on the sofa together for a little while when we got home. Then he kissed me and left for work, locking the door behind him. After he left, I continued to sit on the couch on Reddit for a while, in silence. After about an hour of me sitting there in silence, I hear a door crack open. It's a small apartment, so to see the bedroom and bathroom doors from the couch, all I had to do was lean to the left a little. I assume it was one of my cats coming out of my bedroom, so you can imagine my shock when I lean over and see the door that's opening is the door to the water heater and the closet storage space. I look to my right and see that both of my cats are sleeping soundly at the other end of the couch. I look back to the door, and it's still creaking open. very slowly. It opens enough for me to see it. A set of fingers wrapped around the door, easing the door ever so gently to open it as quietly as possible. That was going to be a no from me. I ran barefooted out the door, into the snow, and down the street to my boyfriend's work. I called the cops. When everyone was back to check out the apartment, he was, of course, gone. After that, my boyfriend and I packed our shit, went to stay with my parents, and 6 months later moved 1,000 miles away from that town. That was the end of it. It was about 5 years ago. I was only about 15 and was on vacation with my parents and some of their friends. These friends of theirs also had a daughter, who was 4 years younger than me. One day, we went to a water park nearby. Our parents thought I was responsible enough considering my age and asked me to look after their friend's daughter. Of course, I agreed. So here we are, running around the park trying different slides and queuing for various attractions. One of them was really fun, so we usually queued for that one. That's when things got ugly. So we were just talking about random stuff when these two men in their 50s started laughing at what we were saying. We hadn't even noticed they were behind us in the queue, so we just turned to look at them and gave them a smile, but then we returned to our conversations. Then I heard them clearly saying some ugly things louder than they needed to, so that we would be able to hear them. They said things like,
"Oh, those bikinis are really nice.
and
Maybe we should ask them to come with us."
for a moment, with the corner of my eye, I saw one of them touching himself over his costume, and they were getting closer to our backs. Too close. So I immediately saw a lot of red flags, and just thought it was going to get worse and worse. My friend was clearly confused, since she was also younger. Then, one of the men tapped me on my shoulder, and asked if we were alone. I immediately replied, "No, my dad is here." So they scanned the area, wondering if my dad was actually there, watching the whole thing. I saw the occasion, and immediately ran away, taking my friend by the hand, and just going as far away as possible from those guys. About 5 minutes passed. I was looking for my parents, but since I didn't have a phone on me, I couldn't find them. The place was very crowded, and it was also one of the biggest water parks in my region. We decided to go to another attraction, and just ignore the whole thing. Well, what happened next left us speechless. While queuing for an attraction, the guys from before found us, and said,
"Why are you girls running? We just want to have some fun with you."
and I managed to reply to them, "We don't want to, stay away," saying it louder so that the other people in the queue would hear me. Some teenagers around my age then noticed something was off, and pretended to know us, saying, "Hey, where have you been? Do you want to go on the slide with us?" So I also went along with them, trying to get those guys away from us. They apparently gave up and left the queue. I immediately thanked them and explained the whole situation to them, and they said they would stick with us for the entire day, just in case those dudes were stalking us. At this point, the day is almost over, so we're heading to the changing rooms. Our newly made friends told us that they would wait outside while we were changing. I was very grateful for their kindness, because after that, we never saw those old men again, or so I thought. While I'm changing, I hear a man's voice coming from one of the stalls. It sounded like one of those men. I'm thinking, it's not possible. I'm imagining it. But then I see him getting out of the stall with a child, who I assume was his daughter, since she was calling him dad. He was helping her get changed. For a second then, our eyes met. He was very surprised since he hadn't noticed me, and he immediately dashed out of the changing room. I'm petrified and scared of going out. My friend finished changing, and then we caught up with the good guys. We finally met our parents and said goodbye to our saviors. To this day, I still think if those boys hadn't helped us, we would have been constantly harassed and stalked by those dudes for the whole day. Or maybe worse. This happened back in 2012. I had recently graduated from high school and was attending community college to save some money. In October, I was hired as a team member of Chick-fil-A, located about 3 minutes from my house. In the same plaza, there was other businesses, including a Burlington coat factory my mom and I would occasionally shop at. I worked from 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m., and in the weeks following, I started to get to know some of the morning regulars, who we would serve frequently. Most of them very kind, just stopping by for their morning caffeine fix. One of the regulars we had was a pair of gentlemen that would stop by a couple times a week in the morning together. One of them was older and very polite. The other was a short, balding man that always gave me the creeps when he came in. His name was Esteban. After a while, I started to notice that Esteban would come in more frequently by himself and only order a small black coffee. On one visit, while I was at the cash register, he mentioned that he worked at the Burlington in the plaza. He also very casually threw in that I looked very familiar to him, and he must have seen me shopping there. He offered up his personal discount if I ever wanted something special. Although I found his comment a little disconcerting, it wasn't all too out of the ordinary for someone to recognize a customer elsewhere, especially since both businesses were in the same plaza, or so I thought. I continued to serve him his coffee with a smile and pushed it out of my mind, but decided to avoid shopping at Burlington from then on. As the months progressed, Esteban continued to come in almost every morning. Some of my coworkers started to tease me about my so-called boyfriend, who would come in and ask for me specifically, by name. When I wasn't there, he would be rather upset and wouldn't order anything, they said. After I heard those comments, I began to feel very uneasy. My mom doesn't drive, and one afternoon she asked me to take her to Burlington to shop for some gifts as she was flying to visit family back home in Honduras. She usually managed to find a good bargain there. I felt my stomach knot. I silently hoped and prayed on our quick drive that Esteban would be nowhere in sight. As we were looking through the racks, my mom decided to go her own way, and we eventually separated. While I was looking through the junior section, I had a gnawing feeling that someone was watching me. Each time I would look over my shoulder, there was no one there. I was feeling very silly until I needed to use the restroom. I walked down past the sheets and comforters to a small, dingy hallway leading to the restrooms, with no one else in sight. As I exited after doing my business and rounding the corner, I froze. Esteban was not so conspicuously organizing some comforter sets about 10 feet in front of me. With his back half turned, I had seen him, but I was sure he hadn't caught a glimpse of me yet. I quickly darted in the opposite direction to avoid any interaction with him and hurried back to my mom. She was ready to check out. Then we left. I had 2 days of class after that incident, and after leaving class early one day, I decided to stop by the mall on my way home and pick up a birthday gift for my dad. As I walked towards the JCPenney I was there to shop at, I happened to look up from my phone and realized Esteban was leaning against a railing directly ahead of me, watching intensely as I walked closer, stalking me with his eyes like prey. I averted my gaze and made a beeline for the Victoria's Secret just a few feet past him. I thought there was no possible way he could have followed me there. I was very wrong. Esteban pushed off from the railing and tailed me through the store. I stopped to look through some items and watched him from the corner of my eye. He was toying with a pair of lacy panties, watching to make sure I didn't leave his sight. That's when it dawned on me. This man had followed me from campus to the mall. He knew I had left early and had tracked me the entire time. I picked something absent-mindedly, trying to push down the paralyzing fear I felt heading towards the cash register. He followed suit, but was cut off by another customer who managed to get in line behind me before he caught up. Since there was line dividers in place, he couldn't leave the line. I paid hastily and bolted out of the store, running as fast as I could away from Victoria's Secret, and hid for over an hour in the Sears on the opposite end of the mall. I was terrified of leaving and finding him outside another store. I finally picked up enough courage to tell an associate what had happened, and he offered to call security. The security guard escorted me back to my car, and I drove home staring into my rearview mirror for any sign that he could be following me. I had to work the next morning, and without missing a beat, Esteban came in for his morning coffee. He was not happy, His face was contorted into a dark, angry scowl. Luckily, I was filling our ice buckets in the kitchen area behind the counter. I could see him through the small window in the door, craning his neck over the registers, trying to find me, muttering something under his breath. I felt hot tears welling up in my eyes, and I slid down the wall to the floor. My morning manager noticed my distress and came over to me, asking if I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't hold it in any longer. Through childlike sobs, I unloaded on him everything that had happened with Esteban over the past few months. He looked very concerned and told me to wait in his office while he made a call. When he came back sometime later, the restaurant owner was with him. They had called the police and made it very clear to Esteban that he wasn't welcome in the restaurant any longer due to several complaints of harassment from multiple female employees. He tried to come in a few times after that and was met with my manager at the door telling him very forcefully to leave or he would call the cops again. With the help of the officer that responded, I filed a restraining order against him and haven't seen him since. We live in the same area, and I absolutely refuse to shop at the Burlington where he had worked. This happened about 6 years ago. I was single and on Bumble. I met Zack. After talking a bit, we agreed to meet. We went for dinner and got on well. He had brought flowers and arranged with the waiters to put them on the table, which I thought was unexpected, but nice. He had been to a good school, had a good job, and was polite and funny. He basically checked out every box on paper. He told me stories about his friends and family. All seemed totally normal. We went for drinks after dinner, and then went home. The next morning, I got a text from him.
I had a great time. Let's do it again.
Although there was nothing wrong with him, I just didn't feel a spark, so I said, "Thanks so much for a great night," and explained it wasn't really what I was looking for, but I had a nice time meeting him. I expected that to be it, or for him to say no worries, but I got another text.
What's wrong? At least you can do is give me another chance.
He offered drinks nearby. I didn't answer. That's where things took a turn. Zack started sending me extremely long messages.
How dare you do this? We had something really special. I've talked to all my friends, and they said it sounded like it was something special too. You're selfish and heartless. How could you hurt me like this? At least you could do is answer me.
And then he would apologize.
I'm so sorry. I'm a good guy. I just feel so strongly about this because I've never felt this way before, and I know it's true love. I need to know why you don't see it too. Please, just tell me what went wrong. Let me give you the chance to see what I see.
It went on and on, essay-length messages about how he felt about me and what we could have been together. This continued all day, every day for about a week, 20-plus long messages a day, and he would continuously call me. By the weekend, I was continuously getting calls every 10 minutes. My doorbell had also started to ring continuously. When I checked the door camera, whoever it was crouching down so I couldn't see them. That day, I blocked him. I didn't get any more surprise visits, and moved shortly after. In the following years, I met someone, and we had a son together. Life went on. In the last week, I checked my LinkedIn and Instagram. I had 2 new requests, both from Zack. For context, I'm a 20-year-old female, and I started an OnlyFans account over the summer to support myself through school. Things were going great, until I posted my Amazon wishlist. Amazon doesn't release your address to people who gift you items, but third-party sellers can, and that's where I went wrong. By the way, not trying to promote it here. This is a very frightening story, and I felt like it should be shared. In late July, I got a puppy. One night around 2 a.m., I took him outside to go to the bathroom. While he was doing his business, I noticed a car parked outside my family home. I saw a figure in the car, and could tell they were looking at me, but I couldn't make out their face because it was pitch black outside. Feeling a bit uneasy, I picked up my puppy to take him back inside, and when I started moving, so did the car parked in my driveway. I sprinted back inside and locked the door, but they never approached my house. The next morning, I went to check my mail. There was an envelope addressed to my OnlyFans name with $20 in it, but no note. I was currently still at home with my parents who had no idea about my OnlyFans account, so I didn't mention it to them. A week later, I moved back to my college town to get ready for school to start. At this time, I stopped posting for the time being until I could figure out how they got my address. I've watched enough crime shows to know there's a possibility that I could be in danger. I live in a duplex with a gated parking lot, just for reference. One morning, I was planning on vlogging my trip to Target because I was planning on starting a YouTube channel since OnlyFans felt unsafe. When I got to my car, it had been ransacked and my vlogging camera was missing. I know, it's my fault for leaving it in the car, but I was using it the night before, and since I live in a gated area, I didn't think I would be unsafe. It wasn't in plain sight either. I hid it in my glove box. I used that camera to film my content, and the SD card that was in there had all my unreleased photos and videos. I know they stole it just for the SD card. Anyways, this is where the story gets weird. There are cameras outside in the parking lot, so we were able to watch the person break into my car and find the camera. And they didn't touch any of the other 7 cars in the lot. They knew which car was mine, which suggests they've been watching me for a bit. After they got the camera, they walked around the duplex until stopping near my window. My bedroom faces an outside street, and my blinds are broken so it's very easy to see in. I have a curtain, but it doesn't cover the window all the way. This person watched me sleep for an hour or so. I have no idea why they didn't try to break in, but thank God they didn't. This person then sold the camera to a pawn shop, and since I knew the serial number, the police were able to find it. However, my SD card was missing. I believe the police are still trying to track them down, but I have broken my lease and moved to a new place, so hopefully, this will keep me safe. This happened when I was 18 or 19. I'm now 21, and I'm still very curious what this creepy man wanted. I went to the grocery store with my mom in the middle of the day, so it was pretty crowded there. When we first walked through the door, I noticed this man wearing paint-splattered clothes, standing there talking to some other guys, and he was staring at me when I walked by. I didn't think anything of it because I'm used to guys being creepers by now. And I was with my mom, so what is he gonna do? Well, after about 15 minutes of us doing our shopping, I had noticed we crossed paths a few times with the man I first saw as we walked in. Again, I didn't really think much of it. I just thought he was shopping like the rest of us. But then, it got to a point where I started seeing him too often. Like every single aisle we walked down, he would come down as well. So, my creeper radar went off, and I began to pay more attention. I noticed this man had no cart, no basket, not even one item in his hands. And we had been shopping for at least 20 minutes by now. I also noticed every aisle we went down, about 20-30 seconds later, he would be right behind us and stop maybe 15 feet away, grab a random item off the shelf, and glance back and forth from the item he was holding to us. Once we began walking to the next aisle, he would put the item back on the shelf and continue to follow us, never once keeping any items he had grabbed. After about 3 aisles of this behavior, I decided I wasn't overreacting, and I told my mom. I whispered to her, "I think this man is following us," and she casually glanced over and didn't say anything. The next aisle, there he was again. I pointed it out to my mom a second time and told her this was the 4th or 5th aisle he has directly followed us without getting any items. This time she definitely noticed it and was weirded out, but continued on as normal. Every new aisle we would walk down, he would follow and kept doing the same weird thing by grabbing random items and immediately putting them back as soon as we started walking. We just kept whispering to each other how creepy it was getting, but didn't know what else to do. We got to the fruit and vegetable section, and don't notice him follow us to that area. After about 2 minutes, we notice him in the corner looking at us and holding coconuts, just staring at us. Like, really? I know you're not here to buy coconuts. Just stop. He wasn't even trying to be discreet anymore. So we finally finish our shopping and go get in line. We notice him exit the store. Never once bought a single item, and we were there for an hour. We started devising a plan to escape without him seeing us, just in case he was waiting for us outside. The line is pretty long, so it takes us about 10 minutes to get in front. Just as we are loading our groceries back into our cart, we notice him walk back inside and stop to scan the area. He makes direct eye contact with me, smiles, and just walks into the store, down one of the aisles. We grab the rest of our bags and walk outside as fast as we can, hoping we would be faster than him, as we didn't see where he went as he walked back inside. We left out a different exit than we had walked in, and as soon as we got outside, he was there, walking directly towards us. I instantly froze in fear, because I was so scared. My mom put her hand on my back and gave me a little shove, and told me to go directly to the car and get inside, lock the doors, while she loaded the groceries. As soon as she was finished and got into the car, she said she saw him get into his truck and was just sitting there waiting. We began driving home, and of course, he began following us. My mom started to speed up, and as soon as we went around a turn and he lost sight of us, she pulled into a random gated parking lot. We waited about 5 minutes to make sure he didn't see us or come back. Then, we went home. This happened a few hours ago, and I'm still trying to process and make sense of it. I needed to get out of the house today, so I opted to go to a big box store with a large lawn and garden section to pick up some indoor and outdoor plants. I pulled in and checked the ads online, still in my vehicle. I remember opening my door wide to get out, so I know that there was no one parked next to me. I browsed outdoors first, killing time and just seeing what they had to offer, and planning my planting project. I don't remember crossing any particular person outside more than once. It was actually very relaxing. I went indoors because it was about to rain again, and I needed to see if they had a decent fire pit or torches, and I was also in search for a particular houseplant. I've spent enough time in this chain in the last few months that I have a decent idea of the layout. While it's all on the same side of the store, it's different sections. I checked houseplants first, and I noticed a guy in a ball cap following me as I checked for what I was looking for. This threw me off, and the area was too crowded for me, so I took off for the fire pits and went down the wrong aisle, but he followed me again as I made it to the fire pits. He was keeping his distance and appeared as if he was looking for something, so I didn't give it much thought. They didn't have what I was looking for, so I headed back to the houseplants. I squat down to look at a tag, and I notice someone feet away from me, behind the tall plants. It's Ballcap Dude. He approaches me and asks what my tattoo on my arm is. So this is potentially a turning point. Maybe he was following me because he liked it. But here's the thing. It's a peacock, which I feel like is incredibly recognizable. But I love them enough to have one permanently plastered on my arm. So maybe he's never seen one, and this was just someone admiring it. So I simply responded, "It's a peacock." And he said,
Oh, cool. That's really nice.
I'm still uncomfortable. I quickly grabbed the one plant that I wanted indoors and go back outside to get the others I saw earlier and check out to the outdoor section. Hands and arms full of plants. I noticed the parking lot was fuller than it was when I got there, and I'm walking up to my car, maybe 20 feet away, and I notice it's rocking. Why the hell is my car rocking? I get a little closer and see someone's distorted reflection in a van that's now parked on the driver's side of my vehicle. I can see someone under my car. I make the corner slightly, and guess who's on their back under my car? Ballcap Dude. I back away as he slightly crawls out. I ask him what he's doing, and he said that he dropped his keys and goes back under, this time on his stomach. I get to the back of my car, open up the hatch to put the plants down. He rocks my car again, and then I hear the loud, almost deliberate key jingling under my car. I'm hanging in the back now, because my flight or flight is broken, and I just freeze. He gets into the van parked next to me, and just leaves. Here's my few extra red flags. There was no merch anywhere near him, so unless he bought a gift card, he didn't make any purchases. Not against the law, but odd. He was also parked the same way I was, so the passenger side was next to my driver's side. So how did his keys end up under my car? And when I first walked up, he was on his back under my car, but then switched to his stomach after I said something. Okay, so this happened to me earlier, and I don't think I'll be sleeping tonight. I'm currently staying in a remote part of the United Kingdom and having a break from working, which means more time to pursue my hobbies, one being photography. I had scoped out a creepy-looking tree formation in a nearby forest and set my camera and tripod up as the sun was coming down, for that extra creepy vibe. As I'm happily taking photos, I see a woman pass through the entrance of the arched trees. This woman had parked her car next to mine when I arrived. She went past a couple of times, looking at me for prolonged periods with each time she passed. I assume she wants to come up this path, but sees that I'm taking photos, so she decides to walk elsewhere. Approximately 5 minutes go by, and she appears again, this time walking towards me, dragging her left side slightly with a strange limp. She stops once, and stares at me for a few seconds, then starts walking towards me. I ask her if she's okay while putting my equipment away, and she starts grunting at me, then stops and stares again. It's at this point that this woman is close enough for me to realize that she's actually a man in woman's clothing, with a wig. An uncomfortable moment passes, and she starts grunting again, walks towards the path, grabs a pile of leaves, and starts throwing them around, grunts some more, and then walks off aimlessly into the forest. I call my friend to tell her what has happened, and ask her to stay on the phone in case this person comes back. I'll just take a couple more photos, and then I'm out. For a good 10 minutes, I hear the crunching of leaves circling me in the forest, and just convince myself that it's wildlife. Then, silence. I take photos, and I haven't seen or heard this person for about 15 minutes, so now I assume that I'm safe. I leave the path, and see that the car is gone. Thank God. However, I very quickly notice that there's a man walking towards me from the entrance. It's the same guy. He has changed into men's attire, and as he walks past me, he shoots me a grin that sends shivers down my spine. I don't scare easily, but this guy just gave off all the wrong signals, causing this overwhelming feeling of dread to wash over me. I'm still on the phone at this point, and holding my tripod over my shoulder, just in case. I quickened my pace and got back into my car. As I did, I saw him come out of the lane I had been down, stop, and look around, then starts walking towards my car with intent. I video for a while, and then rapidly haul out of there, driving past his car that he had moved down the road, and thinking, what in the great beard hell just happened? My ex-narcissist stalked me for months after I ended our relationship because, in his words, this relationship isn't over until I say it is. He called and texted me dozens, if not hundreds of times a day. He turned up at my apartment, my job, and my school when he knew I would be there, and just waited for me to come out. He had a spare key to my apartment that I gave him while we were together, and he would use it to enter my apartment when he knew I wouldn't be there, and wait for me to get there. Once, when I saw that he was there, I went elsewhere and wasn't home at my normal time. He told me that he knew I was avoiding him, and if I didn't come back right then, he'd kill my cat. He'd wait outside my apartment door and force his way in when I was leaving, or wait in the parking lot and block my car in with his. One of the times he forced his way in, he had somehow found out that I was dating again. He took my phone and told me that he would fix me so no other guy could have me. The police ended up being called. They escorted him out but didn't arrest him, something that still makes me angry to think about to this day. I had to change my phone number and the lock on my apartment, and also got a restraining order. He had more money than me, and hired a sleazy attorney who tried more than once to get me to drop the case. Because, guess what? I wasn't traumatized enough. It took me a long time to feel safe in any given place, including my own apartment, and to go anywhere without looking over my shoulder after that. I worked at a small town movie theater for a few years during community college. Creepy guys weren't common, but they definitely weren't rare. I had one in particular who clung on to me. It started when the first time he came into the movie theater. I took his ticket order, and then his food order, and then gave him his total. The entire time, he was just intensely glaring at me. When he handed me his money, he grabbed the back of my hand and said,
"Oh, I like your skin."
Confused and trying to avoid confrontation, I said, "Thanks, I got it for Christmas." Hoping sarcasm would deflect him. Didn't work. For the next year, he came in about every 2 months, and regardless of how long my line was, he would always wait in my line, every single time. He started to get more aggressive once he realized I was avoiding him. I was behind the counter one day stalking something. I wasn't alone, but to the customer's view, I was. Out of nowhere, he comes running down the hallway straight towards me. Thankfully, my 6-foot-tall coworker came out of the storage room, and he instantly stopped. There were plenty of other things he did. Followed me to the theaters, tried to follow me to the bathroom, and even tried to follow me upstairs to the projection room once. But the creepiest thing was when he waited for me in his car. I don't know if you know, but when you decide to come to the 10:30 showing of whatever shit movie is out, theater employees have to stay till it's over. I got out of work around 1 a.m. and started to walk towards my car. I hear the engine of a car already running, and I notice the old stalker just sitting there, smiling at me. I hear the door open to his car and see him beeline for me. I ran the fastest I've ever ran to my car and locked the doors. Noticing he was beat, he walked back to his car, giving me the death stare the entire time. Always check your surroundings. I know I'll be sleeping with one eye open. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay safe out there.